You've seen what new Harley trikes are going for. 50 grand and climbing isn't rare anymore. And that's before the dealer fees and chrome. So you've got to ask yourself, are you really paying for the ride or just paying for the name on the tank? In this video, I'm putting 7 trikes up against Harley on the stuff that actually matters. Highway comfort, stability, real storage, and that solid, planted 3-wheel feel. For roughly half the money. There's a sidecar, a couple of reverse trikes, and one flat-out muscle monster in here. Some of them will completely shake the Harley or nothing mindset. Watch till the end, because the #1 pick could change what you do at the dealership tomorrow. Number 7. Ural gear. Up Sportsman. Some rigs look nervous when the pavement ends. This one seems to relax. If your idea of pride is a machine that can sleep beside a campfire and wake up ready for another long day in the woods, the Gear Up speaks your language. It is not sleek, it is not delicate, and it does not apologize for a little grease under the fingernails. You look at it and immediately know. This is built for work, not for posing. The first time you stand beside one, the sidecar grabs your eye. It is a real third wheel, not a styling exercise. There is room for a buddy, a dog, or a load of gear, plus metal racks begging for fuel cans, tools, and firewood. The whole rig feels like something that rolled out of a 1940s motor pool, and somehow ended up at a modern dealership without losing its soul along the way. On loose gravel or a rutted forest road, the wide stance and driven sidecar wheel tell a story you will never hear from a pure pavement trike. You can crawl along at walking pace, engine thumping, while the rig claws forward through mud, snow, or sand. There is comfort in that steady pull, the same comfort old flathead and air-cooled veterans always had. Simple power, delivered slowly and honestly. Highway speed is there when you need it. But the heart of this machine lives between the back roads and the tree line. Riders who came up turning their own wrenches will appreciate how everything is out in the open. Valve covers, final drive, drive shaft, carburetor or throttle body hardware. Nothing hides behind plastic shrouds or stacked electronics. If something rattles loose on a trip, a small roll of tools and a calm hand can usually put it right again. That kind of straightforward serviceability is getting rare, especially on 3-wheel machines originally designed for luxury cruising. Under all that, steel sits a modest flat twin, pushing out about 41 horsepower from a 750 cubic centimeter engine, backed by roughly 42 pound-feet of torque that shows up low and steady. Stopping duty is handled by hydraulic disc brakes on the front wheel and the sidecar, with a drum brake at the rear, keeping things traditional but effective. Up front, a leading link fork soaks up rough tracks, while twin shocks handle both the rear and the sidecar wheel to keep the whole outfit composed when the trail gets ugly. Fully fueled, the rig weighs in around 730 pounds, with a practical seat height of about 31 inches that lets most riders plant their boots solidly. All of that old-school utility starts at roughly $22,600. Rugged as it is, some riders still want 3 wheels that bite into clean asphalt like a street fighter. Number 6. Polaris Slingshot S. If 3 wheels ever earned the right to be called a hot rod, this is the moment. The Slingshot belongs in that second group, built for the rider who still enjoys a hard pull onto an empty highway ramp more than polishing chrome in the driveway. Sit down in that low cockpit, glance over the sharp bodywork, and it feels less like a traditional motorcycle and more like a purpose-built hot rod with its roof removed. For rider used to a big touring saddle, climbing into the Slingshot is a different ritual. You drop down instead of swinging a leg high, sliding into a bucket seat that holds your back and hips in place. Steering happens through a wheel instead of bars, but the sensation is familiar the moment the engine wakes up and the rear tire hums. Wind hits your helmet, road noise rises around you, and that open-air feeling returns without the constant worry about low-speed tip-overs or backing a 1,000-pound dresser up a sloped driveway. It still feels exposed and alive, only easier to manage when the body is not as forgiving as it was at 30. On a winding 2-lane road, the layout pays off. 2 wide-set front tires dig into the pavement, giving a kind of confidence most traditional trikes struggle to match in tighter bends. Where many 3-wheel machines can feel nervous when you push into a curve, the Slingshot stays planted and decisive, encouraging an experienced rider to pick a line and hold it. Weight sits low, the chassis communicates clearly, and the sense of control is closer to a small sports car than a heavyweight touring motorcycle. For anyone who grew up on muscle cars and remembers hanging the tail out in the 70s, that familiarity is not an accident. Power comes from a lively 4-cylinder mill that makes in the neighborhood of 178 horsepower out of 2,039 cubic centimeters, with around 120 pound-feet of torque feeding that single rear tire. Bringing it back down from speed are hydraulic disc brakes at each corner, managed by a full anti-lock braking system tuned for hard street use. The front end rides on a double wishbone suspension with gas-charged shocks, while a single swing arm and coil-over shock control the tail, giving the chassis its low, planted feel. Curb weight sits near 1,650 pounds, yet you drop into a cockpit with a seat base only about 10 inches off the ground, which adds to that car-like stance. Entry into this world of 3-wheel muscle begins at roughly $21,000. Once that hot rod itch is scratched, attention naturally turns to a 3-wheeler that proves lightweight. And low stress can still feel serious. If you are getting value from seeing how these 3-wheelers stack up against Harley, hit like so more riders find it. Subscribe for straight shooting breakdowns, and tell us in the comments what you are riding right now personally. Number 5. Can-Am Ryker 900. When the goal is staying in the wind without wrestling a heavyweight, smaller can be smarter. The Ryker leans hard into that second camp. It is a compact, low-slung machine that invites you to step on, relax your shoulders, and just roll without worrying about balance, parking lot drama, or wrestling a tall seat after a long day in the saddle. For riders coming off a heavy touring bike, the first surprise is how little effort the Ryker demands. There is no clutch to squeeze, no complicated shifting pattern to manage, and no need to think about holding 1,000 pounds upright at every light. You settle onto the seat, ease your feet onto the pegs, and twist the throttle. The automatic system takes care of the rest, quietly matching gearing to speed, while you watch the road instead of staring down at a tachometer. It feels more like guiding a willing machine than managing a big piece of iron. The stance helps too. With 2 wheels spread wide up front and 1 at the rear, the Ryker offers a planted feel in corners that many traditional trikes struggle to deliver. Turn-in is light, almost intuitive, and the front end tracks where you point it without a fight. For riders who still enjoy sweeping curves, but no longer want to worry about unexpected gravel or a slow speed lean, that 3-point stability is a welcome change. You can focus on the line, the scenery, and the feel of the wind without quietly calculating what might happen if you have to stop short on an uneven surface. Comfort is straightforward, not luxurious. The seat is supportive enough for several hours at a stretch, and the riding position keeps weight off the wrists. Adjustable ergonomics let you shift the pegs and bars closer or farther, which matters a lot when age has added a few aches. The Ryker will not match a full dress tourer for long-distance pampering, yet it comes surprisingly close for such a small footprint. For many riders, that balance of ease and comfort is more important than having every possible feature bolted on. A compact 3-cylinder engine does the work here, turning out roughly 82 horsepower from 900 cubic centimeters, along with about 79 pound-feet of torque that feels strong in such a light chassis. Braking is handled by hydraulic discs at all three wheels, backed by a full anti-lock braking system to keep surprises in check on wet or dirty pavement. Up front, a double wishbone layout with coilover shocks keeps the nose settled in, corners, while a single rear shock on a swing arm manages bumps out back. Dry weight hovers around 650 pounds, so it is dramatically easier to move around the garage than a full-size trike. And the seat height of roughly 26 inches helps most riders climb on and off without strain. All of that approachable power and stability starts at about $9,500. From compact and playful, the story shifts toward a machine built to carry real luggage and real miles without feeling bloated. Number 4. Can-Am Spyder F3T. For riders who count miles in days rather than hours, the right three-wheeler has to be built from the road up. The Spyder sits firmly in that second camp, designed for riders who still think in terms of states crossed rather than coffee shop loops. Take one look at its stance, and you can tell it was laid out with luggage, passengers, and highway speed in mind, not just boulevard cruising. Climb on, and the first impression is how natural the position feels for anyone who has spent years behind a big fairing. Your feet move forward into a relaxed posture. Your hands fall to the bars without a stretch, and your hips sit low enough to feel locked in, but not cramped. The seating is firm in the way a good touring saddle should be, spreading pressure across a broad surface instead of perching you on a narrow pad. It is the kind of shape that makes 500 miles in a day feel possible, not like a dare. The front end telegraphs that comfort is backed by stability. 2 wide-set front wheels, an automotive-style suspension layout, and a solid footprint combine to give the Spyder an anchored feel when the wind picks up or traffic swirls around you. Where a traditional heavyweight trike can sometimes feel top-heavy when pushed through a long sweeper, this layout keeps the mass low and forward. For a rider whose reflexes remain sharp but whose back and knees complain more than they used to, that extra sense of control can be worth more than another set of chrome rails. Long-distance riders quickly notice the wind management. The mid-height shield does real work, taking the worst of the blast off your chest while still letting clean air reach your helmet. Your shoulders sit in a relatively calm pocket, which pays off late in the day when fatigue would otherwise creep in. Add in standard cruise control, a decent gauge layout, and factory storage that can swallow a proper touring load, and the Spyder starts to look less like a niche experiment and more like a logical evolution of three-wheel touring. At the heart of the Spyder sits a 1,330 cubic centimeter 3-cylinder engine, good for around 115 horsepower, and roughly 89 pound-feet of torque, tuned to pull cleanly across the rev range. Slowing that momentum are hydraulic disc brakes on all 3 wheels, integrated with a full anti-lock braking system, and electronic stability control to help keep the chassis calm while touring at speed. The front rides on a AA arm suspension with an anti-roll bar, while a single rear shock on a swing arm handles the back, giving it a confident, almost car-like footprint. Dry weight comes in just under 980 pounds. Yet the seat is set at about 26 1/2 inches, low enough for easy mounting while high enough to see over traffic. Pricing for this kind of mid-weight touring capability begins around $24,000. After seeing what a focused tourer can do, it is hard not to wonder how far 3-wheel power and presence can be pushed. Number 3. Boss Standard Trike. Some machines announce themselves with chrome. This one does it with displacement and sheer presence. One glance at that long frame and the wall of engine between the front wheel and the seat, and you know exactly what it was built to do. This is not a polite touring machine that just happens to have 3 wheels. It is closer to a muscle car that decided it wanted a handlebar and a helmet instead of doors and a roof. For a rider who spent younger years around big block Chevrolets and loud quarter-mile nights, the Boss feels like unfinished business. Thumb the starter, and the deep rumble is instantly familiar, a sound that lives closer to your chest than your ears. There is no need to pretend it is about fuel economy or quiet, refined manners. It is about real displacement, honest torque, and the satisfaction of feeling that weight surge forward when you roll your wrist. Every stoplight becomes a choice. Behave, or remind the modern world what raw power felt like before everything was filtered and muted. Out on open highway, the size that looks intimidating in a parking lot turns into an advantage. The long wheelbase settles the chassis at speed, giving a steady, almost locomotive quality to straight-line cruising. Wind hits your shoulders, the engine turns with lazy authority, and the miles start to fall away behind you. There is no sense of straining or working hard to maintain pace. The machine barely notices a grade or a passenger, just digs in and pulls. For a rider who still respects torque more than technology, that effortless shove carries a kind of quiet dignity. Handling a rig like this does demand respect. You are not dancing through tight city streets or switching lanes like a sport bike. The boss hoss prefers sweeping country roads, broad interstate on-ramps, and long, clear sightlines. Treat the throttle with maturity, trust the brakes, and it rewards you with a ride that feels massive yet loyal. There is something satisfying about mastering a machine that could easily go to your head if you let it. It feels like proof you have not softened, only grown wiser. Deep in the frame sits a big V8 power plant that churns out roughly 445 horsepower from about 8,200 cubic centimeters, along with an estimated 433 pound-feet of torque that defines the character of every ride. Taming that force are oversized hydraulic disc brakes at each wheel, tied into a full anti-lock braking system to give the rider a serious safety net when the pace climbs. A stout, telescopic fork keeps the front in line, while dual coilover shocks manage the wide rear, working together to keep the long chassis stable rather than skittish. Fully fueled and ready, the Trike carries a wet weight, around 1,300 pounds. Yet the seat height stays close to 27 inches, keeping the center of gravity reassuringly low. On the used market, stepping into this kind of three-wheel muscle commonly begins around $25,000. When the urge for brute force is satisfied, the appeal of a more polished grand touring experience starts to grow. If you want more honest comparisons like this, between Harley and the machines quietly challenging it, make sure you subscribe so you do not miss the next breakdown that could change how you spend your miles and your money tomorrow. Number 2. Rewaco RF1 GT. Where some trikes chase nostalgia, this one feels like a modern grand tourer that just happens to wear a helmet. The RF1 sits squarely in that second group. It looks like something between a stripped sports car and a low-slung custom, the kind of machine an experienced rider eyes twice before stepping closer. Nothing about it feels accidental or improvised. Every line and bracket tells you that 3 wheels were the starting point, not an afterthought bolted onto an existing frame. Settling into the RF1 feels more like dropping into a well-built roadster than climbing onto a conventional bike. The seat cradles rather than perches, with real back support and legroom that lets taller riders stretch out without folding their knees like a pocket knife. Controls fall to hand easily. The bars are close enough to avoid overreaching, and the pedal placement respects tired hips and ankles. After years on narrow saddles and tall touring rigs, that low, confident seating position can feel like a small luxury all by itself. On the road, the payoff becomes clear. The wide front track and low center of gravity work together to keep the RF1 planted when the pavement turns rough or the wind picks up. Steering is direct, not twitchy, and the chassis feels calm over expansion joints and patched asphalt. You get the sense that the suspension was tuned by people who understand how fatigue sneaks into your shoulders and lower back after several hours of fighting a poorly balanced machine. Here, the fight never shows up. The Trike settles, tracks, and simply goes where you ask. Power delivery matches that poised feel. The turbocharged engine does not leap forward in a frantic rush. Instead, it builds a strong, smooth wave of torque that makes passing slow traffic or pulling away from a stop a relaxed affair. There is no need to constantly work a clutch lever or hunt for the right gear. The automatic transmission does its job quietly in the background, leaving you to listen to the engine, watch the road, and enjoy the ride. For a rider who has already proven his skill with manual boxes and heavy clutches, that ease is not weakness, it is hard-earned comfort. Power is supplied by a compact, turbocharged, 4-cylinder, rated at roughly 140 horsepower from about 1,500 cubic centimeters, delivering around 137 pound-feet of torque in a smooth, progressive wave. Deceleration comes from high-specification Brembo hydraulic disc brakes at all 3 corners, overseen by a full anti-lock braking system that keeps panic stops controlled rather than chaotic. The front wheels ride on a double wishbone suspension with coil-over shocks, while the rear benefits from a sophisticated multi-link coil-over setup, giving the whole platform a planted yet refined feel over rough pavement. Wet weight is in the area of 1,300 pounds, balanced by a low seat height near 27 inches that makes entry and exit surprisingly easy for an aging back. For a machine with this level of comfort and engineering, the starting figure sits around $35,000. With luxury and refinement on display, the final word belongs to a machine designed to make 3-wheel touring feel as natural as breathing. Number 1. Can-Am Spyder RT Limited. When the wish list reads like a full dress tour, but the body asks for something more forgiving, a different kind of 3-wheeler steps into view. You can see that from the moment you walk around it. The tall screen, the broad seat, the integrated trunks, and the wide front stance all say the same thing. This rig is not built for short coffee runs. It is aimed straight at long horizons, and days measured in states, not city blocks. Settle into the saddle, and the difference from a converted trike becomes clear. You do not feel like you are perched above a motorcycle that had a 3rd wheel grafted on. Instead, you sit down into a cockpit that seems shaped around a rider's needs. The seat is broad and contoured, with enough support to spread your weight rather than drill pressure points into your hips. Floorboards give your feet room to move, your knees sit at a sane angle, and your hands rest comfortably on the bars without a stretch. Everything about the position says you could spend 10 or 12 hours here without having to peel yourself off in pain. On the move, that purpose-built feeling only grows stronger. 2 substantial front wheels and an automotive-style front suspension keep the Spyder calm when crosswinds hit or a semi blasts past in the fast lane. Electronic aids quietly watch for slips or sudden moves, helping the chassis stay settled when the road surface lets you down. Unlike tall, heavy traditional tourers that can feel top-heavy in quick transitions, this design keeps the mass low and forward. For riders who have already earned their miles, that extra margin of stability means energy goes into enjoying the view instead of fighting the bike. Wind and weather protection stand out on long days. The screen takes pressure off your chest and shoulders while still letting a stream of clean air reach your helmet. Your passenger benefits from the tall backrest and wide rear seat, which turns 2-up travel from a favor into something you both can look forward to. Heated grips and good hand protection keep your fingers useful in colder seasons, extending the riding year. The more you look, the more you see details aimed at real touring instead of showroom flash. Driving the Spyder is a 1,330 cubic centimeter 3-cylinder engine, producing around 115 horsepower and roughly 90 pound-feet of torque, enough to push a fully loaded rig down the interstate without breaking a sweat. Stopping power comes from large hydraulic disc brakes mounted at each wheel, backed by a complete anti-lock braking system, traction control, and stability control network that all work quietly in the background. Suspension duties are handled by a AA arm front set up with an anti-roll bar and a rear swing arm shock that can automatically level under load, keeping the chassis poised regardless of passenger or luggage. Wet weight lands near 1,020 pounds, yet the seat height of about 29 inches offers an easy step over and a commanding view of the road. For riders stepping into this level of 3-wheel touring, the opening price typically rests around $30,000. For riders who came up on big twins and long hauls, this kind of three-wheel touring evolution proves that comfortable, powerful miles do not belong to one brand or one layout anymore. In the end, it's not the badge on the tank that matters. It's how many good miles you've still got left in you. Drop a comment and tell me what you're riding now, and which of these trikes you'd actually test ride against a Harley. If this helped you think twice about where your money's going, hit like so more riders see it, and subscribe for more straight shooting breakdowns just like this.